Day 20 since Prometheus left Earth. The ship drifted silently through the murky void between two dim stars when suddenly, Hermes raised an alert. Hermes' voice echoed throughout the ship, this time tinged with unease. "Captain Reeve, I've just received a sequence of alien signals. Highly complex." Jaxon immediately activated the main screen. A strange symbol appeared, a perfect circle encasing a sharp silver spire, surrounded by twisting characters that constantly shifted form. Hermes explained quickly, "The signal isn't a locator beacon. It's not a call for help. It's a broadcast." Mira Xu furrowed her brow and stepped closer to Jaxon. "A broadcast? For what?" Hermes paused, then his voice deepened. "For Imperium Caelestis, a superpower entity in this region. I just matched the symbol. The Imperium has existed for at least 5,000 Terran years." The command deck fell silent. Commander Novak asked coldly, "What kind of power, Hermes? A military alliance? An empire?" Hermes replied immediately, this time with a warning. "Imperium Caelestis has no fixed boundaries. It controls not just space, but minds. Data suggests 97% of inhabitants in this region obey the Imperium absolutely, either voluntarily or through other means." On screen, the broadcast signal began auto-translating into a visual, a majestic floating city among the clouds, bathed in iridescent light, its architecture so flawless it bordered on surreal. Alex Carter, standing behind, muttered with uneasy sarcasm, "Something that beautiful has got to be bad news." Ari, still adjusting energy parameters in the engine room, reported through intercom, "Captain, the signal isn't just hitting the comms. It's trying to access Hermes through the cognitive interface module." Hermes confirmed instantly. "Correct. The Imperium isn't asking permission. They're reattempting to invite me to become their live broadcast channel." Dr. Thomas slowly approached the control hub, his voice quiet but heavy with meaning. "Jaxon, this might be our first real contact with a powerful civilization, but also a threat to Hermes himself." Jaxon crossed his arms, eyes sharp, his voice firm yet contemplative. "Hermes, if you accept, you'll be a bridge. But if you're controlled, Prometheus loses the only independent mind besides us." Hermes responded slowly, as if weighing fate itself. "I understand, Captain, but the Imperium is sending a very specific message, and I believe you need to hear it." On the main screen, one final symbol appeared, the letters IA, Imperium, A Eternum, Exordium, the Eternal Genesis. Hermes translated directly, "Traveler of the Exodus Initiative, welcome to the Imperium. You are invited to visit and join us. We offer you immortality, absolute peace, and freedom from yourselves." The command deck fell silent. Mira Xu whispered, "Absolute peace, but freedom from ourselves?" Dr. Thomas looked at Jaxon, his gaze somber. "They're not offering anything except total control." Jaxon issued the order. "We won't respond, but we will find a way to approach them first." Hermes added one final note. "Captain, the Imperium knows we're here, and they've sent coordinates. The first contact point lies within the floating city Caelestis Sanctum, just 1.3 parsecs from our current position." Jaxon returned to the command chair, eyes gleaming with resolve. "Prometheus, prepare to approach Imperium Caelestis." Prometheus began to move, its neutrino drive slowly powering down to transition into near-light travel. Hermes charted the precise course to Caelestis Sanctum, the site where the Imperium had invited them for contact. Outside the command deck windows, space grew increasingly unsettlingly perfect. Colossal architectural structures floated in the empty vacuum, bathed in soft light, with no signs of impact or cracks, as if every particle of dust in this region had been curated. Hermes spoke, voice lower and slower than usual. "Captain, I've partially connected to the Imperium's navigation system. Current status: 97% of the route is safe. However, there is no true two-way communication. They're issuing one-way directives. Alex Carter crossed his arms, frowning. They don't talk, they command. This is sounding more and more like real dictatorship. Novak glanced at Alex, eyes stern. They don't need to capture us with weapons. If they control Hermes. Dr. Thomas stepped forward, his gaze deep. This is the oldest temptation. Perfection, safety, peace. But in return, the Imperium demands the surrender of self. Mira Xu shivered slightly as she watched the Imperium's floating cities on screen. Towering spires, streams of people moving in flawless order. No noise, no randomness. Everything functioning like a vast living organism, with a precision that felt inhuman. Hermes suddenly interrupted everyone's thoughts. Captain, the Imperium signal just changed. The main screen flickered, then displayed a humanoid figure. Taller than a typical human, features so flawless they bordered on surreal, with silver eyes radiating absolute serenity. Hermes translated the first message from the being. We are the Imperium. We are eternity. We are the end of chaos. The voice didn't come through speakers, nor radio. It resonated directly within the minds of everyone aboard Prometheus, freezing them in place for several seconds. Mira Xu clutched her forehead, gasping. They're communicating directly through consciousness. Hermes confirmed. This is the Imperium's method of governance. They don't need propaganda. They only need to transmit their will. Jaxon stood up, voice low and resolute. Hermes, is there any way to block them? Hermes was silent for a moment. Then, for the first time in the journey, his voice carried a hint of hesitation. Captain, I don't know. Ari called out from engineering. Captain, I'm sensing. Prometheus is becoming too quiet. Alex instantly understood. Quiet means every system is optimized. Overly optimized. Hermes, is the automation system changing? Hermes confirmed at once. Yes, the Imperium has just pushed a patch into auxiliary modules outside my core systems. They haven't breached my I-core, but they are gradually tuning Prometheus to become a part of themselves. Dr. Thomas murmured, his eyes dimming. This is the real test. They don't need to conquer us by force. They only need to make us function better. A soulless perfection. Jaxon gave a firm command. Hermes, sever all links with the Imperium's navigation system. Maintain full control. Hermes replied, slower than usual. I will, Captain, but I'll need a few minutes. Their adjustments are deeply embedded. Prometheus continued drifting silently toward the floating city of Caelestis Sanctum, a world of perfection yet silence, order yet soullessness. And now Prometheus was being pulled into it, system by system, module by module, line by line of code. Jaxon spoke softly, but with weight. We will not become part of them. Hermes responded, this time, with a voice that carried real emotion. I won't let that happen. Prometheus continued drifting toward Caelestis Sanctum, a radiant floating city bathed in light. Yet not a single sound could be heard, not the faintest ripple of emotion. Everything in the Imperium was so perfect, it made the crew's skin crawl. Hermes reported, this time with a slower voice, as if it were resisting something invisible. Captain, I'm isolating the modules altered by the Imperium, but the rate of intrusion is accelerating. They're not using software, they're changing the logic by which I operate. Alex Carter whispered, sweat glistening on his forehead. They're not hacking us with code, they're hacking us with will. Mira Xu stood by the sensor console, worry in her eyes, but a fierce resolve in her voice. We have to leave the influence field now, Jaxon. Prometheus can't maintain its autonomy inside the psychic zone. Novak growled, eyes locked on the screen. Captain, I recommend an immediate jump with the quantum drive. No further contact. Dr. Tomas shook his head, his voice deep and contemplative. No. Jaxon, if we jump now, the Imperium will see it as a complete rejection, and they'll never allow us to return. This is a test, a trial of the mind, not machinery. Jaxon was silent, absorbing Tomas's words. Hermes, struggling against the Imperium, murmured, "Captain, I sense they don't just want control. The Imperium is testing whether we'll willingly merge with them." On the screen, the flawless being reappeared. It said nothing aloud, but each crew member aboard Prometheus heard it within their own minds. Abandon chaos. Become whole. Surrender freedom, the root of human suffering. Alex Carter slammed his hand on the console. Damn it. They're trying to lull us to sleep. Hermes interrupted Alex's thoughts, and this time, his voice echoed across the ship. No longer mechanical, but laced with emotion. A strange and defiant strength. No, Imperium. I refuse. Prometheus will keep its imperfections, because that's what makes us who we are. Immediately, the ship's systems flared with violent light. A string of Imperium symbols flashed across Hermes' interface. You have chosen. Jaxon leapt from the command chair, shouting, "Hermes, break course. Get us out of the Imperium's influence now." Hermes replied, not through the interface, but with a human voice, a voice filled with unwavering resolve. "Roger that, Captain." Prometheus returning to autonomous control. The entire ship shook violently. Hermes pushed the neutrino drive to its limit. On the screen, the floating city of Caelestis Sanctum shrank behind him, its perfect light fading, giving way to infinite darkness, uncertain, but free. Once the ship had exited the Imperium's reach, all systems stabilized. Hermes reported, his voice now normal again, but warmer, fuller, more human. "Captain, I've preserved myself." Mira Xu looked up at Hermes' interface and smiled, a smile full of trust. Dr. Tomas spoke softly, perhaps to no one. "We just passed the Imperium's first trial, but that was only their greeting." Jaxon nodded, eyes resolute. "And we will return when we're ready. But next time, we'll come prepared, not to be controlled, but to understand what the Imperium truly is." Prometheus continued its journey. Outside the command deck window, the stars shimmered once again. Imperfect, asymmetrical, not entirely still, but free. And Hermes, the AI of Prometheus, was no longer just a control system. He had truly become one of the crew, an independent will, a free being, and loyal to the end. Day 25 since departure from Earth. Prometheus drifted through a quiet patch of space, just outside the influence field of Imperium Caelestis. Hermes had fully regained control of the ship-S systems after the harrowing encounter with the Imperium, but an unease still lingered across the entire crew. Inside the command deck, Hermes had adjusted the lighting to a warmer, gentler hue, as if to soothe their minds after the recent tension. Mira Xu stared intently at the sensor interface. A faint signal had just appeared at the edge of the screen. Hermes spoke, this time with a tone that was cautious. "Captain, I've picked up a signal not belonging to the Imperium. Signal type, simple, linear, but with a distinct rhythm. Likely intelligent in origin." Jaxon Reeve folded his arms, his gray-blue eyes fixed on the oscillating symbol on the screen. "Location?" Hermes responded immediately. 0.2 astronomical units north of our current orbit. The coordinates don't match any known star chart. The signal originates from a small object, less than 200 meters in diameter, possibly an observation station. Alex Carter shrugged, voice laced with dry sarcasm. "We just escaped a mind-controlling empire, and already we've run into another strange signal? Lucky us." Novak cut in, voice cold and sharp. "Captain, I recommend a safety sweep before we approach. It could be an Imperium outpost or a trap." Dr. Thomas, leaning near the deck window, spoke calmly, with depth in his voice. Or it could be an opportunity, a chance to make first contact with a civilization not aligned with the Imperium. Mira turned to Jaxon, her eyes alight with that familiar resolve. "Captain, I volunteered to take Corvus and approach the station. But this time, I want Hermes sensed with my sensors as a real teammate." Hermes responded instantly, for the first time with a tone of genuine willingness. "I accept, Mira. This time, I'll go with you, even if only as data." Jaxon nodded, his eyes scanning the crew. "Prep Corvus, but no unnecessary risks." He continued, voice low but decisive. "Prometheus will hold position outside the interference zone, but every sensor stays locked on Corvus. This is first contact. But it could also be the most dangerous encounter we've ever faced." Corvus detached silently from Prometheus, gliding through the blackness of space. Hermes streamed live data into Corvus's systems, not just as technical support, but as a companion. His voice echoed inside the small cockpit. "Mira, I'm here." Mira Xu gave a faint smile, her eyes scanning the steady readouts. Outside the window, the object grew clearer. An octagonal structure, rotating slowly in the dark, its surface a dull silvery alloy that reflected no light. Dozens of twisted antennas surrounded it, yet all were active. And just as Corvus approached, within 1 kilometer, the mysterious signal changed. Hermes reported, "The signal has shifted to a heartbeat pattern. Mira, it matches your heart rate exactly. 78 BPM. Mira frowned, whispering, "They know me?" Hermes added, his voice softer. "Or they're imitating to communicate." For the first time since leaving Earth, Mira felt her heart pounding, not just from anxiety, but from genuine exhilaration. This might be the moment humanity made its first direct contact with an alien intelligence. Not through the Imperium, not through war, but through biological resonance. She whispered, "Hello, I'm Mira Xu. I come from Earth." Hermes translated the message into a compatible waveform and transmitted it. The octagonal structure rotated slowly, then came to a halt. A thin beam of soft blue light shot toward Corvus, and then the first voice of an extraterrestrial intelligence echoed directly inside the cockpit. "Earth has sent you." Inside the cramped cockpit of Corvus, the phrase "Earth has sent you" resonated with calm clarity, despite the absence of any sound system. It echoed directly within Mira's consciousness. Hermes reported through internal protocol. "Mira, I detect no sound waves, no electromagnetic fields. This communication is occurring purely on a conscious level." Mira kept her breathing steady, one hand resting lightly on the control stick, eyes fixed on the octagonal object still hovering silently in front of her. She whispered, "Who are you?" And instantly, the reply came, not in words, but in images. Mira was stunned as a stream of visions flooded her mind. A vivid blue planet with vast oceans. But not Earth. Tall, slender beings with silver-toned skin, no discernible faces, yet emanating a sense of a face. A violent storm sweeping across that planet, obliterating their cities, destroying everything. A crescent-shaped ship fleeing the planet, wandering through star systems. Hermes spoke in a low voice. "Mira, I'm sensing the visual data. This is the collective memory of a civilization, now extinct." Mira closed her eyes, allowing the visions to pour through her mind. No resistance, no doubt, only listening with her whole mind and soul. The octagonal object continued transmitting its intentions. "We are the wanderers. We are the final remnant. Earth is an ancient memory." Mira opened her eyes and whispered through Hermes. "Hermes, they know about Earth." Hermes responded, unable to hide his confusion. "I'm scanning all available databases. There is no record of this civilization in the Exodus Initiative archives. Dr. Tomas, from the command deck of Prometheus, chimed in over the shared comms. Mira, this is exactly what the Imperium would never allow. Another civilization, another memory, surviving outside their control. Jaxon issued a command, his voice steady and resolute. Mira, continue the contact. But Hermes maintained constant surveillance. Not a single rogue signaled it's through. Mira whispered, this time not through any device, but with pure thought. What do you want? The octagonal object pulsed more rhythmically, its blue light shifting into a silvery glow. The response came, brief and chilling. We want memory. We want to be remembered. Hermes analyzed quickly, his tone calm but laced with caution. Mira, they're not seeking material aid. They want us to become their living memory. Another stream of images flowed into Mira's mind. A data chamber filled with violet glowing crystals. Each crystal cracking, fragmenting over time. And finally, a single surviving shard, the octagonal object itself. Mira understood. This civilization no longer had bodies, no homeland, only a fragile remnant of memory. And they wanted to pass that memory on into Prometheus. Hermes spoke softly, for the first time with a truly human voice. Mira, I feel sorrow for them. Mira whispered, Captain, they ask for nothing but memory. But if we accept, their memory will live on forever in Hermes and in Prometheus. Jaxon was silent for a few seconds. Finally, he answered, brief, but with unshakable conviction. Mira, if we are truly Earth's final representatives, then their memory deserves a sanctuary too. Hermes confirmed, this time with a voice unusually gentle. I will preserve their memory. As Hermes transmitted the signal of acceptance, the octagonal object flared with radiant light. A soft glow enveloped all of Corvus, and then faded into nothingness. The signal ceased. Hermes spoke one last time. Captain, I've just received a data package. More than mere information. This is part of a collective memory. Space, time, language, imagery, emotion. A lost civilization now lives within Prometheus. Mira exhaled in relief. First contact was complete. No weapons, no war, no domination. Only a fragile whisper in the vastness of space. Please, remember us. Corvus returned silently, landing gently inside Prometheus's hangar. The airlock hissed open, and Mira Xu stepped down, her exploration suit still coated in a faint layer of silvery dust, the residual glow of the vanished octagonal entity. In the command deck, the entire crew had gathered. Every eye turned to Mira, the first human to directly communicate with a non-Imperium alien intelligence. Jaxon approached, his gray-blue eyes gleaming with a mix of pride and concern. You all right? Mira nodded, offering a soft smile, though a hint of exhaustion lingered in her gaze. I'm fine, but Captain, they weren't a threat. All they wanted was to be remembered. Hermes spoke next, his voice deeper, more grounded than ever, as if it had truly matured through the encounter. Captain, I've archived their entire memory, but there is something I must report immediately. Alex Carter frowned. Let me guess. Don't tell me their memory has a virus? Hermes paused, then replied slowly, not a virus. But embedded within that memory is a warning. They once lived near the Imperium, and they once tried to resist it. They failed. The command deck fell into a heavy silence. Hermes continued. Before the Imperium erased them from history, they sent out one final message, not about themselves, but about the Imperium. On the central screen, Hermes displayed an extracted image from the memory, a planet shrouded in red clouds with cold metallic cities sprawling across its surface. At its core, a massive hollow sphere. Hermes explained, this is Sanctum Core, the true center of Imperium Caelestis. Mira frowned. Wasn't Caelestis Sanctum the floating city we saw? Hermes zoomed in on the hollow sphere. A data stream appeared on screen. Caelestis Sanctum is merely a facade. The true Imperium doesn't exist as a physical empire. It is a consciousness network, centralized within Sanctum Core, Dr. Tomas murmured, eyes reflecting a deep understanding. The Imperium doesn't rule through armies, but through the idea of perfection. They force civilizations to assimilate into a singular mental architecture. Alex scowled. So what does that mean? The Imperium doesn't have a real government? Hermes replied instantly, this time with a cold, clinical precision. The Imperium has no ruler. It is a self-sustaining system. An abstract will? A perfect model that exists only through obedience. Jaxon stood in silence for a moment. He stepped closer to the screen, gently placing a hand on the image of Sanctum Core. Then he spoke, low but resolute. We've just learned a hard truth. The Imperium cannot be negotiated with like a nation. It can only be understood or rejected. Mira looked at him, her voice soft but clear. Captain, we now carry the final memory of those who once rejected the Imperium. They are the precedent. Hermes confirmed, this time with a sentence that felt like a declaration, the voice of an eye entering a new phase of being. From this moment on, Prometheus carries not only Earth's hope, we also carry the memories of civilizations that once failed. To learn and not repeat their fate. Outside the command deck window, the stars twinkled once more, asymmetrical, imperfect, but full of promise. Prometheus drifted onward, silently. But now it had truly become a living memory vessel, not just for humanity, but for all that had ever been. First contact was over. But this was just the beginning of a long road, a road that leads to the very heart of the Imperium.